I want to start by showing two artistic practices, and I think that's sort of where I'm going to take off from. Has anyone seen this piece in the 10th floor? This is 8th floor, actually. This is a piece by Ince Eviner. It's called Parliament, and it's the drawings of the European Parliament. This was a piece done in 2009. It's the Parliament, and each room is someone doing an action that is sort of what would not be done in the European Parliament. There are people who are masturbating, there are people who are having sex, there are people who are, there's a politician up there who's like having a moment and people are listening to him, but actually listening to him with their backs and just, laughing with their backs to him. There's people who are just, there's an albino man down there who's shaking hands and making a deal. The albino man represents the white man in Ince Eviner's works usually. So this is a piece that was done in the technique of composite. So she actually videotapes every single one of those actions that is happening in each single room, one by one. It's her students who do the actions. And then she posts them on top of the drawings. The drawings are her starting piece. She always starts from drawings and paintings. That's where her technique comes from. That's where her practice comes from. So this is always her starting place. This is actually a 3-minute animation, and there's stuff happening down there where if you see to your right at the bottom, there is someone who's excavating the earth. That's in reference to abortion, actually, and there are tunnels at the bottom of the European Parliament where people are, excavating and trying to make their through what's happening at the European Parliament. So this is actually projected, if you've seen it on the 8th floor, as a 6-meter wide animation. And at first, when you look at it, it's like a very pleasant, it's a gorgeous drawing. It's like people are doing something. It's very lively. It's really an aesthetically pleasing moment. But then when you come close to it, you see all these moments that are quirky, that are representing something else. This was a piece that she did in 2009, 2010, when Turkey was, the negotiations between Turkey and the European Union were quite going strong and seemed hopeful for a moment. It just represented actually the backdoor, maybe negotiations. Here, if we can go forward. This is a piece that we actually commissioned from her for the I Chi Triennial, and it's called The Ordinary Condition. I took this video on my phone, so it's not the whole thing. Please do go see it. It's amazing, and we can actually play it while I'm talking about it. So this is like what's happening overnight. It's dark outside at the background, and there are things happening. Like I said, I took the video myself, so it's a little bit shaky, but you can see those guys. They're all men in this video, and beforehand she used to use all women, and she comes from a very exploratory. Her work is usually exploratory of womanhood, what it means to be, what her sexuality means. But this was a piece that she deliberately chose to use men. Looking at this very macho culture and thinking about what it means. And there are moments, right now what's happening up there is this gang of boys are having a folk dancing moment, and you see them having fun, and then all of a sudden they just fall down on the floor and they can't dance anymore. There is right there, as it's scrolling, is a bomb that is exploding, and these bomb rescue people who are trying to take it out. There's a girl who's stuck there, a guy making a little gymnastics moment. And there's actually, curiously enough, there's a moment where the soldiers are wrapping their boots on the ground trying to do a walk. So it's quite interesting that she finished this piece actually on the August 10th, which is 5 days before August 15th. It's called Ordinary Conditions, so it's the ordinary moment that's happening in our lives, actually. It's sort of repetition. It's capturing moments that are that she thinks are symbolic. So this is one artistic practice that I wanted to show, and then the second one that I'm going to show is going to be Halil Rabah. But before I go to Halil, I want to say something about the choice of the artist, and I'm just showing artistic practices because I think I don't know. This is something about the way that I work, that I curate, I guess, is that I'm usually interested in people's practices and not necessarily the work. So with pretty much all the artists that I work with, I try and commission a work. It's important to me to be supporting the artist's practice and to be actually looking for a vision that's going to come out to be able to sort of support that kind of area of experimentation. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And so when actually Chihiro, we came together and we read Chihiro's statement, and it's about the caravanserai, and it's about the conditions of human condition, it's about travel, it's about how we navigate the world. My response to it, and I think that's something that stayed, along with responding to each of our curatorial choices, one thing that pushed me through is, how do you think in a time of uncertainty that we live in? We live in a very uncertain moment. I mean, 2 weeks ago, we didn't know what was going to happen the next day. We don't know what's going to happen 2 weeks from now. We don't know what's going to happen 2 months from now. It's actually quite a fragile moment that we're living in. And I don't mean it in terms of just politically. I mean it in socially, economically, culturally, all kinds of ways. But I think it is, we're on the verge of some sort of a change or a moment of reflection. When we're navigating through that as people, as artists, as curators, as people who practice cultural, how do we envision a world and how do we envision different statements? So thinking about this, I think it's really important to engage with artists who actually have a vision for what that could be. And that was sort of like my way of navigating through who to invite and what to invite, and most of the people did produce a new work, and I think that's important because it's, like I said, I think it's the practice and it's what they're proposing for this moment. And I think Angie is important for me because her commission work really showed a moment that actually echoed well with that uncertainty and responded to it. So the second person I would like to talk about is Khalil Rabah, these are again two pieces. One of them is an existing piece, and then the other one is a piece that he produced for the I Chi Triennial, and this is in the Kaihatsu building in Toyohashi. So this is the installation, showing shots of the installation. One image that I forgot to actually put in here in the presentation is that light box that you're seeing on the right-hand side. If we go forward a couple of, I think one more, this would be, you can't see exactly what the image is, but that is an image of a pool surrounded by railings. The railing, which you see as an object which you saw as an object a couple of slides ago. It's a pool that obviously you can't go into because it's surrounded by a railing. And then the piece that we commissioned is that painting over there, which is a bank that you cannot sit on, a painting of a bank that you cannot sit on. It's a bank that's made from metal, but obviously it doesn't have the bottom to be able to sit on it, and that painting went with the barrier of the bricks that are laid down as a barrier to the pool image. This is the genius of Khalil. He's someone who can really walk into a space and actually play with it architecturally. He comes from a background of architecture. So he went in and he totally responded to the space being such a loaded space of industrial backgrounds, which corresponded to the images. So initially, the image that you're seeing here on the background was a light box, and it was inside the railing. And this one was proposed to be this painting with the bricks in front of it, but he changed the setup of the room. Enough of describing the room. I'm going to come to what the title of the piece means. One of them is called Scale Model Area C, number 654, and the other one is called Scale Model Area C, number 653. Area C is the area in the West Bank in Palestine. So Khalil is from Ramallah. He lives in Beirut. The Area C is the West Bank, according to the Oslo agreements, was divided into three parts. It's the Area A, Area B, Area C. Area A is comprised of 18% of the West Bank and is totally, in terms of security and in terms of civic duties, such as education, such as health ministry, is totally controlled by the Palestinian authorities. Area B is 22% of the whole of West Bank, and it is actually, in terms of civic duties, controlled by the Palestinian Authority again, but its security is administered by Israel. And Area C is the place where all of this is controlled by the Israelis, but actually it is Palestinian territory according to the Oslo Accords. Area C obviously is the place where a lot of the negotiations, let's say physical, geographical negotiations happen. So it's where a lot of the constructions that are quite controversial happen. And so Halil, coming from an architectural background, has been doing art for a really long time, I guess, at this point. But his point was to sort of photograph images. I mean, he's been photographing images in Area C for a really long time, but he actually wanted to make sure that he makes scale models of them, architectural models, which are basically visuals, representations of these photographs of these moments that don't work. It's a pool inside a railing. You're supposed to go in it and swim. You can't go in it and swim. It's a bank that you're supposed to, what do you do with a bank? You sit on it. But of course, there's nothing to sit on, so you can't go on and you can't sit on it. So it's the thing, the function of which doesn't work, and it's the representation of that moment and the object that goes with it. So I think these are, I tell that because I think he already had one. He came up with a second one. Hopefully he keeps on going with these scale models. And I can imagine what it would be like when he has 21 of them and you're looking around the building and things don't work, but architecturally you're competing with this. I did want to show these two practices, and I don't say works, but practices, because I think for me, both of them present something that is really important. They come from like technique that is really superb, like according to their backgrounds. Halil coming from an architectural background, Inji coming from a drawing, painting background. They're very visually enticing. They draw you in, but I think they're really also works that really deal with the ordinary condition, to say it, the moment that we're living in. Of course, art is not politics and politics is not art, but I think in a time where we're dealing with these uncertainties, they capture those moments when those uncertainties, fragilities, moments of weakness come out in the best way, in the visual way. So that was sort of a pattern to keep in mind for me as looking through people. And I hope you're able to see all of them. But that was a word about the practices, and I'm gonna say one more thing, and then it's been a long day. I'll finish. But I think for me, when I say like thank you to everyone, it's been a great learning experience. What is so unique about this I Chi Triennial? I mean, as Daniela said, it's been only a year and a half or 2 years, like just coming back and forth, and that's a relatively short period of time. Also living somewhere else and thinking about connections, disconnections, differences, and all of these things. And also thinking at the same time, this is a triennial, but what does the structure of a biennial / triennial do in terms of arts in this day and age? What does it mean? And as Daniela so succinctly put the other day, we were having a conversation. She said, well, there is that 20th century model where it's so prominent, where there is the theme and there is a proposition and all of the works relate to this. I think this it comes from the structure of the triennial, Aichi Triennial itself, that it is very local and very international at the same time. It can hold this moment of having guests who bring in experiences, but also being very, very much connected to the local place. But also this particular triennial, having all these different art histories standing next to one another, I think this was... and I'm reflecting back to you, giving back to you the reflections of the artists that I talked to, artists who are coming, who maybe I invited, who are coming from different places, who haven't been to Japan before, and seeing the Aichi Triennial, they were like, there were a lot of different art histories, there were a lot of works that were standing next to one another, the works that you had to read from coming and looking at it from different art histories. And I think that's the strength of it. This is a big experimentation, and in a time when, you know what to expect when you walk into a biennial, there should be different forms of biennials, and I think this is the strength of this particular edition of the triennial, that there is a big experiment that is going on here, and as usual, as I say with the artists, it's the same with the curatorial vision or the artistic director's vision, that I really appreciate it for that experimentation area and for the area that it gives us to experiment with those things. So that's how I see the process and also the outcome of the triennial as well. Thank you for listening. It's been a long day, and hopefully we get to talk more.